Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into an absolutely incredible cross-cultural transformation. We're going to explore the life of Dr. Kiyoichiro Sugimoto, a guy whose journey took him all the way from being a completely secular Japanese university student to an Islamic imam. We'll be walking through his own recounted experiences to trace exactly how this profound shift in worldview actually happened. Okay, let's just jump right into it. Picture this. Dr. Sugimoto originally looked at religion with some serious skepticism. He literally saw it as just a money-making enterprise, a business, designed to just collect funds from followers. That was his absolute reality. Well, at least until a massive cultural shock completely shattered that worldview. Section 1. Story of a Samurai Descendant. So to really wrap our heads around his transformation, we have to look at where he started. He grew up in Seki City, right in the Gifu region of central Japan, and he comes from a very proud samurai heritage. Growing up, he was super academic, eventually studying cultural anthropology. But spiritually, he was basically secular. I mean, his family was culturally Buddhist, sure, but he didn't hold any strong religious beliefs. Like a lot of people around him, he just assumed this worldly life was the whole shebang, and that everything just ended at death.
Part 2, Travel to Bangladesh and Life's Meaning.
The real turning point for him hit at age 19. He took a trip to Bangladesh, and what he saw there was a total game changer. In Japan, he was surrounded by extreme wealth, guaranteed health care, top-tier education, but he felt a lot of people had what he called lifeless eyes, like they were missing a real-life purpose. Then he lands in Bangladesh, and he's immediately struck by the extreme poverty and the street children. But here's the crazy paradox. The people there had these incredibly vibrant eyes, warm hospitality, and deeply resilient family values. Suddenly, the material wealth of Japan felt kind of spiritually hollow compared to the life force he was seeing in impoverished Bangladesh.
And this contrast got really personal for him really fast. He remembers traveling out to these rural villages where farmers who had almost nothing materially and had probably never even seen a foreigner before were just instantly inviting him into their homes. They're offering him milk tea and these traditional sweets called pitha. And this mind-blowing warmth made him stop and ask what deep-seated values are driving this level of hospitality. Seeing such extreme inequality made him confront what we might call the birth lottery. It really bothered him. He started wrestling with this massive philosophical puzzle. How can there be any justice in the world if someone is just born into guaranteed wealth in Japan, while someone else is born into intense poverty in Bangladesh with absolutely no say in the matter?
Part 3, First Introduction to the Quran.
Desperate for answers to this structural inequality, he heads back to Japan and starts actively digging into the Islamic values that drove his Bangladeshi hosts. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about 1996 here, way before you could just Google things on a smartphone. He goes to a local bookstore, picks up this dense 600-page Japanese translation of the Quran, and as he reads it, it just clicks. He felt an immediate, deeply personal connection. He said it didn't feel like some ancient text, but more like the creator was speaking directly to his modern 20th century struggles. Right away, two huge concepts jumped out at him. The first is Tawheed. He was totally struck by this concept, which gives a very distinct and logical definition of a single creator. This was completely foreign to his native cultural understanding, where polytheism was the norm, and the idea of a creator was pretty ambiguous. Reading chapters like Surah Ikhlas gave him the exact clarity he'd been looking for. But the second concept, this was his ultimate philosophical breakthrough, Akhirah, or the afterlife. This literally solved the birth lottery math for him. The idea is that a 100-year unequal life on Earth is just a brief test. The true, eternal justice for all that worldly inequality is delivered in the infinite hereafter. All of a sudden, the huge gap between the wealthy Japanese student and the impoverished Bangladeshi child completely made sense within this framework of ultimate justice. Moving to part 4, new challenges as a Muslim. So, compelled by everything he was learning, he actually converts to Islam at age 20. He goes from curious observer to active practitioner. But man, practicing Islam in Japan 28 years ago, it was a logistical nightmare. Look at these numbers. There were literally only 7 mosques in the entire country back then. Compare that to today, where there are over 151. Back in the day, just finding a quiet place to pray was a massive hurdle.
And it wasn't just about trying to track down a place to pray or finding halal food. He was facing incredibly harsh social headwinds. Throw in the post-9/11 media narratives, and he was dealing with heavy prejudice and negative stereotypes on a daily basis.
But honestly, the most painful challenge for him was the complete rejection by his own parents. That rift lasted for 20 whole years.
Part 5. Parents accepting Islam. Despite 2 solid decades of tension, he didn't give up. He actively worked to heal that severed bond. He took these very methodical, super empathetic steps to ease his parents' cultural anxieties. He started really small, just consistently sending thoughtful gifts to his dad, things like coffee and nuts. Then he tackled their biggest traditional fears head on. He proved he was a reliable eldest son by promising, "I will maintain our ancestral samurai property." And as they got older, crossing 75, he guaranteed he would personally care for their health. He was essentially showing them his faith through pure, consistent action.
And you know what? All of that incredible patience finally culminated in one simple, almost funny question from his dad. Why do you have a beard? After years of them completely shutting down any talk of religion, this tiny question opened a narrow, 10-minute window for Dr. Sugimoto to finally explain his worldview.
Now, knowing he only had about 10 minutes, he didn't just start preaching randomly. He used this highly structured framework called the GORAP method. In really simple, accessible Japanese, he logically walked them through the core tenets: the existence of God, his oneness, the nature of revelation, and prophethood. He kept it crystal clear without overwhelming them with theology.
And that careful patience led to this incredibly beautiful, totally disarming moment. After he finished explaining, his dad looks at him and asks, "So, what do you want?" And his wife, who was sitting right beside him, just simply says, "We want to take you to Jannah with us. We want to take you to paradise." That one sincere sentence of pure love completely melted 20 years of resistance. His parents accepted his faith and took their shahada right then and there. It's just unbelievable.
Finally, Part 6. Inner Peace and Life's New Meaning. Looking back on it all, with his background as an intellectual and a former anthropology student, he finds immense inspiration in the history of it all. He just marvels at the historical preservation of the Quran and the rapid achievements of Prophet Muhammad, spreading this message across brutal deserts in literally just 23 years during the 7th century, completely without the help of modern technology or infrastructure.
And that really brings us to the core of how he lives his life today. He perfectly contrasts the reality of our crazy modern world with his spiritual practice. Think about it. We live in a totally unstable world. Shifting economies, things like COVID-19, changing relationships, just constant anxiety everywhere. But against all that chaos, he finds immense psychological peace by anchoring himself to a stable creator. Through his 5 daily prayers, a firm belief in taqdir, or destiny, and by just saying alhamdulillah through both the good times and the bad, he keeps his heart steady in a very turbulent world.
Dr. Sugimoto's transformation from a secular samurai descendant to a devoted imam is just a phenomenal testament to the human search for meaning. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on, straight from his journey. In a rapidly changing and inherently unequal world, where do you find your anchor? Let that sink in as you process today's explainer. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and as always, keep seeking knowledge.